Hey, this is Matt McLean, and in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Audacity to edit voiceover. And we're going to be using a file that I've provided for you in Canvas that has some clear issues that we're going to clean up, some noise and other fun things. If you're watching this video, you're probably already on the assignment page in Canvas, but I just want to point out a couple things first. Up at the top, download the instructions so you can read all of the parameters, including detailed instructions offline. They're also here in Canvas. If you scroll down, this is where you download the required document that you need to download and edit. It's a WAV file and it's called Microphone Check. Just click on this little download link here. To download, there's an overview down below, including a link to the video that you're watching, any notes that might pop up about Audacity or the world of digital audio that we need to deal with. Things always pop up, so I have a couple notes in here. If you have worked on Audacity in the past, there's some fun and really cool new things in here. And then project parameters. I'll go over these as we get into the project in Audacity in a minute. And then there's a little heads up about problematic words. The second "to" in the sentence that I read is a problem. Quick, over, and lazy, as you can see, are also problems. So there's some helpful hints there. As you can see, as I have it set up here, there's a next page that has detailed instructions. I might bump this all onto one page. So it's all in Canvas here, and you can download them. At the bottom, there will always be this clear rubric. This is true for all assignments. So make sure you hit all of these marks. Get an A and then do art. There isn't a whole lot of art on this project. Well, the art is actually in the editing. It's sort of like trimming trees or really topiary. We were making really beautiful things out of less beautiful things. So let's get into Audacity and check out the project. I'll minimize that and get Audacity going. And I've already downloaded this file, Microphone Check. Just drag and drop it into the Arrange window. You'll notice that Audacity will name the project, the first file that you drop into it. And it'll also set the project sample rate to the whatever you drag in first. So just keep an eye on this. We don't need to change anything in this project. But we need to change the name of our file, our Audacity file here, and create a project folder before we do anything. So I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to create a new folder. Make sure you do it. I'm going to do it on my desktop here. Create a new folder, and I'm going to call it my last name. You're going to be using your last name, and just call it Assignment 1. And then we're going to, here on the desktop, click into that. And then, because we're going to be saving this Audacity project in there as well. We're going to call it the same thing. Use your last name, Assignment 1. And then if we hit Save, we should be able to see our folder here and then see the Audacity file inside. With a temp file, I'm on a Mac, so there's one temp file. Windows systems at the moment will probably see 2 temp files. When you save your project and quit Audacity, those will go away. So when you upload, I don't need to see these temp files, just the AUP and then the export that we'll get to in a few minutes here. So let's get started. Close that out. And before we do anything in here, just make sure your file is renamed. I'm going to create a duplicate, and one of the reasons why is because Audacity does destructive limiting, or destructive editing. The editing is unlimited. So if you ever need to go back and get something, instead of having to undo all your work, sometimes it's nice to be able to go back to the source, and then you can work from there again. And that might pop up here. So what you do is you can always go to Edit, and then the key commands are here. I like to use key commands for duplicate, so I'm going to use my key command. It's Command D on my Mac here. And then I'm going to mute this original track, and I'm going to minimize it with this little arrow here. So you can expand or minimize these tracks. You can also grab these handles, but that's the quick way to do it. And then the first thing you're going to notice here is probably that the track is really quiet. We'll deal with that in a minute. And also that it's a stereo track. Most voiceover tracks are mono. In this case, there's some fan noise, and let's listen really quick. Sniffles, clips, pops. Even this first little noise here, I noticed that if I go to the beginning, it's a little louder in one ear. It sounds like a needle drop on a old phonograph. But a lot of times these noises in the room will be out of phase. And if you're cutting really precisely your voiceover into nice little pieces, sometimes it can be really hard to make your cuts when the waveform goes across zero crossings. That's the way that you make really clean cuts. So having a stereo file is it's a roadblock. It's a bit of an impediment. So we are going to get in here and change that. Here's a great tool in Audacity. You can go to Split Stereo Track, and this is going to turn that stereo track into 2 mono tracks. Notice that it pans them left and right. We'll fix that in just a second. So this is a great tool. A lot of times, if you check out one of the Zoom mics from ATC, I know in the past there was one that had like a broken microphone, and people would record in stereo, and they would have a stereo file, but it would only be on one side. And then, how do you use it if it's panned all the way in the left ear? Well, you had to do this. You had to separate the track and then use the side that works. So in this case, we're just going to get rid of this second one here, bip, and then we're going to pan this one to the center. And I'm going to expand our waveform. And now we are ready to start editing, almost. Notice that it's really quiet. So there's a trick here. Instead of using your volume sliders, is that we can do something that's called Normalize. If you double click or do select all on your track so it lights up in white here, you go to Effect and it's called Normalize. Normalization will just bring all of the levels in the track up. Back in the olden days, there was some debate as to whether or not you should normalize because it was destructive editing and it could impart some potential artifacts. But in the 21st century, that is less of an issue, if an issue at all. And it's a good idea to normalize, especially if you're going to be doing some processing. And for me, I just want to see some waveform here because I need to really zoom in on it. So I'm going to use a -3 decibel threshold. On a single track like this one that we're going to be making, you could make it even louder and go to -0.1. That might be the default. But for recording a limited number of tracks, -3 dB, it's a good idea to normalize your tracks that are on an equal playing field. For bigger mixes, you might want to normalize to -6 dB, but we got -3 here. I'm going to hit OK, and you can see now that I have a lot more waveform to deal with. And then we can zoom in on this waveform. I'm using the pinch function on my mouse trackpad, or I guess my trackpad on my laptop. On a Mac, Command 1 and 2 also zoom in and out. But I've started using the zoom function here with my thumb and forefinger. Okay, we're almost ready to start here. Let's give it a listen. Should be a lot louder. You can hear the hiss. Fun stuff to edit out.
Microphone check. 1, 2, 1, 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Okay, so what you need to do is make me say, microphone check, 1, 2, 1, 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Just like that, as if I were a professional voiceover actor. And I did like a second take at the end. So, and you'll notice like here I said the and the right after each other. So you might want to, you can change maybe the order of the words or use some of the words from the second take to make it as awesome as possible. But we're definitely going to have to get rid of, well, the noise first and then also all these flubs. So this is probably one of the coolest things in Audacity is this noise removal function. And I know that everyone will be interested in how to do this because it's great for cleaning up any voiceover work. I'm actually going to go back in. I'm using ScreenFlow here to capture this video. And I usually edit the video and then before one last step, I'll drop it into Audacity and then clean it up one last time. A lot of programs have like scrubbing functions. including ScreenFlow, but it's not as good as this one here. So I'm going to show you the plugin first. It's called Noise Reduction, and it's a two-step process. Step 1, Step 2. And I'm actually going to use the default settings. I have an additional video link in the module that goes over what these sliders do and how you can play with them. But for this project and for many projects, especially if you've normalized to -3 dB, these settings will work. But I'm actually going to close this because I have to do something first. I have to get the noise profile. So what I need to do is find a really uniform piece of noise in the background. So let's listen to the beginning. Well, you can see there's some fumbles in the waveform, and you don't want that. What I'm really trying to eliminate is that hiss and static. If there are cars going by in the background, those things are really hard for this to edit out. But for like a fridge humming in the background or just self-noise hiss from a microphone, it does a great job. So what I want to find is a really good piece of audio. Hiss. I think that's it right there. Make sure there aren't any little nubbles in your waveform. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe this piece here. And then here's something I always do when I swipe a piece of audio. I hit Z on my keyboard. Boop. You didn't see me do it, but trust me, what it does is it cuts or makes your selections at 0 crossings. And this is a general rule of thumb. Always do that. Now we're going to go to Effect, back into Noise Reduction, and then we hit Get Noise Profile. So we have a copy of the noise file selected, get the noise profile, and then you either select all or double click on your track to make sure you select the whole thing. And then we're going to print our effect here. So now we go into Step 2. So we've selected the whole thing. Go back into Noise Reduction. Don't touch the sliders. 12, 6, and 3 here are the default settings. And you hit OK. It does a little bit of math. And then let's give it a listen in the beginning. Okay, so you'll notice that the flubs are still there, but that hiss is gone. All right, we're off to the races. Now I need to get in and start isolating these words. So I'm going to show you one way to do it. There's several workflows. This is going to be sort of the Henry Ford model of production, where I'm going to do it step by step. I think it's just like the most efficient way to do it. The most efficient way to do it is actually to do a clean voiceover read. Like in the real world, I never would have used this take. I would have just recorded it and saved myself a ton of time because I'd be done now. With that noise removal, I'd be off to the races and ready to add some other sparkle dust on there. But now I need to make what they call a composite or a comp of the words in the correct order. So let's listen.
Microphone check.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this word and I'm going to scan it or swipe it. I'm going to hit Z, as I always do on the keyboard, and then I'm going to create a duplicate. So I'm going to use the key. You can go to Edit, and these are all the different, like you can split tracks and join them and copy and paste. I'm going to use Command D here, and it'll create a new track with that one word. Okay, and this track here is going to become my composite track. So now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to copy these words, and sometimes you can keep whole phrases. This looks like
1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah, I think that I could probably keep as a whole phrase here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe this, hit my 0 crossing, and then I'm going to do a copy. So you can use your edit. This is the long way to do it. It's a whole lot faster. If you do a copy, Command C, and then put your cursor on this composite track, and then you can paste into it. And now I'm going to show you a new trick that will help you if you ever have to do these video tutorials or put voiceover together, is if you make a mistake and you want to go back and fix it, if you snap your fingers, you can see it in the mix, in the waveform. And when you go back, it'll kind of look like this clip right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap my fingers, and then because you don't want to see me go and do the busy work of grabbing all these different words, what I'm going to do is disappear behind the curtain for a second, and I'll pop up in the future briefly. So here's the snap. I'm actually going to leave the snap in the mix, and then you'll hear another snap as I come back into real time, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so I just finished dropping all of these words into this bottom track. You'll notice this one here is missing because it's a flub. And I kept them each right below where they originally came from, just so I didn't lose track of where I was in the read. And then if you zoom in, you'll notice there might be some artifacts here. I'm going to show you how to clean these up even further. But before we do, I'm actually going to mute this track and minimize it. Now we're really on to our composite track. And let's see. Let's move everything over to the left here. So if you select, and then with this, your selection tool, if you hover around the top of these waveforms, you can slide things over. So I'm going to slide those over to the front. I'm just going to grab this whole little group and move it over here, close to the front. And then I can see this, there's a gap right here. Let's maybe close the gap. Come on, hand. And we'll move those over. Okay, let's listen to what we have. I'm going to hit rewind.
Microphone check. 1, 2, 1, 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Okay, so I need to compress some of these guys here at the end. I kept the and the because I'm not sure which one's going to work better when I get the whole phrase compressed. There are definitely some whumps and flumps in here that at the end of words that need to be edited out. So now I'm going to show you a cool trick. I'm going to go into Audacity Preferences. So go to Audacity Preferences, and what I'm going to do is create a key command. Actually, let me go back and tell you why I'm going to do this key command. Is what I need to do now is really zero in on each piece of audio, and I'm going to silence and delete any of this extraneous nonsense even further. So this is where the real art form of the topiary comes in. It's busy work, and I will eventually snap my fingers magically again, so you don't have to sit through the whole thing. But usually what I would do is I would want to clean up these pieces of silence at the beginnings of words. Let's maybe get rid of more of that. And I'm going to hit Z, and then you can do something that is, you can use this little button up here, silence audio. If I hover over that button, you'll see that there's actually a key command for it. So on a Mac, it's Command L, and that will get rid of any hiss in the background. And then what I'll usually do is create a fade at the beginning of the word, just on the first little bit of the waveform. And the way to do that old school is go in and hit fade in. It's an effect. Let's listen to it.
Microphone.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Microphone check.
And then I probably don't need this stuff at the end. So hit Z as always. Silence it with my key command, and then I'm going to do like a little fade here. But this gets super tedious. So what I like to do is set up a fade key shortcut. And that's one of the things that Pro Tools does that Audacity doesn't do, is in Pro Tools you can move these boundaries, and it creates, and Reaper does too actually, when we get into Reaper, these little fades at the beginning and ends of all these little pieces of audio, and it makes cleaning things up super fast and easy and painless. There's an extra step here in Audacity, but I'm going to save you half of that step. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to go to Preferences and go down to Keyboard, and you're going to, in the search bar, hit Fade. And fade in and fade out, you'll see don't have key commands set up. So I know just from experience, well, Pro Tools, generally, there's D, F, and G are the keys on the keyboard that are assigned to fades and crossfades. So D is already taken, but F and G are not taken. I just know this because I've done some sleuthery, and F is a good one to remember because, well, F for fade. So what you do is click on fade in, go down here, hit F, and then hit set. And then for fade out, I'm just going to do the one right next to it, G. So for fade out, click on this little space, put G in there and hit set. And now I'm ready to go in key command land and do this more like a pro. So you have to hit OK to finalize those moves. And then I'm going to do that same move here and clean it up a little bit better. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more to this phrase. And this is the microphone check part. And so I do a Z for zero crossings, Command L to really get rid of any nonsense, and then swipe, and then just hit F to fade it. Boom, I'm done. So let's listen to the beginning of this phrase.
1, 2.
Okay, sounds great. Now let's listen to the end of this one, because the end of this one has a really tricky spot.
1, 2, 1, 2.
And you have to have your headphones turned up, and they have to be good headphones. But you can see this warble in the waveform. It's a low frequency little thud. I think that I'm working with like the left channel. If you kept the right channel, it's a little more accentuated. But we need to get rid of that. So I'm going to zoom in on to the tail here. And I don't want any of this nonsense. So swipe it, hit the zero crossing. Well, I'll show you what happens if I don't have a zero crossing. I kind of grabbed, let's see, like, watch this, in the middle of a waveform. Well, let's do that like this. And then if I hit Z, watch what happens to the white space. Boop, it moved over to the zero crossing. So that's just to show you what to do. But we're going to get rid of just all that low frequency information. And I'm going to hit Z to double check that I crossed or didn't select a non-zero crossing, and then silence that. And then I'm going to do my little fade. So a little swipey there. Zero crossing. I'm going to hit G. And you didn't really see it, but that created a fade. Let's see, I could actually do it here. Let's do it like that. And then you can see the waveform get a little bit smaller. And then this we can just delete. Now let's listen to this.
1, 2, 1, 2.
That sounds pretty clean to me. Okay, what you're going to have to do is go into all these other words. And here you can see this is probably something that needs to be deleted. Yeah, it's a little thub. So I'm going to snap my fingers again magically, and I'm going to go and clean all this other junk up, and then you'll hear me snap back in the future with a polished composite that's ready to start thinking about being exported. So here we go with the snap. Okay, so magically I have edited all these little bits and pieces, and I'm going to start moving them closer together. So I'm just going to grab this upper handle, and let's just hear our phrase as we compress everything right up against each other. And again, I left my the and the in there. We can make that decision later. Actually, I think for some reason I think the was going to work better. So I'm going to actually put this over here, BAP, and I'm going to delete that one. This is the. And then see how this works. And if you just snuggle them all right up against each other here, you can usually hear if it's too rushed, then you can just start pushing blocks back. So let's just give it a listen from the beginning.
Microphone check. 1, 2, 1, 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Okay, so it was a little rushed for me, somewhere in the middle
1,
here.
2. The quick brown.
I kind of want to hear more of a break between the sentences, so I'm just going to swipe this portion, and like I said, I can just move this whole block over. So what the cool thing is, by doing that, I'm not changing this arrangement at all. I'm just accentuating the period in between the two sentences. Let's listen to that. Transition again.
Microphone check. 1, 2, 1, 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Okay, so now we are almost ready to export. The here is kind of bugging me. You can make your own executive decision. You could actually take the from here and put it at the beginning, and maybe keep the, so it says the and the. You know, if you want to mix it up and be creative, that's the kind of creativity that exists in this creative environment. But we're ready to export. Let's get rid of that and make sure that these tracks are grayed out and muted because when we export, we really should only see a clip that's about, well, 8.5 seconds long. Okay, and in a perfect world, what we do is add some more fairy dust, like compression and equalization here, but that is for another day, because we take a deep dive in the next module on compression and equalization, and then you're actually going to apply it to some voiceover down the line. So we're just baby steps here. We really did the topiary and shaped everything and got rid of all the background noise here. So I am ready. Don't forget to save to export. And I'm going to go to export, and we're going to do it. We need to do it as a wave, and I believe I asked for a 16-bit PCM file. So before I do, and you can just use the same file name here, I do want to point out something. And I can't remember how this was recorded, but I think it was recorded at 24 bits. We can check in a second. But I'm sure the question that is pressing everybody, it's like the horror movie when the guy sets down his phone and runs through the house and you're just waiting for him. Like, he needs to go back and pick up the phone. Is the dithering question. And that is, if we are downsampling from 24 bits to 16, shouldn't we dither? And the answer is yes. And the reason why is if there is any really high frequency bat frequencies, anything over 20,000 hertz, it can be reflected down into the audible range when you downsample. This is in my classic examples, like the picture of bricks from a distance where you see the weird patterns in the bricks. It happens in the image land, in video land, and also in the audio land. Anyway, long story short, let's go in, and I'm going to show you in Audacity. If you go to Quality under Preferences, it is already set up to dither when you downsample, so you don't have to do anything. I'm just going to cancel that. So don't change those settings. That should be the default. So now we're ready to export as a WAV file. And again, make sure that it is a 16-bit. This is what old CDs are, old CDs. But yeah, use your last name and call it assignment 1. Make sure that you are putting it into your assignment folder here and hit save. You can add meta tags if you're feeling creative. I am not. And let's double check our project folder. And again, now you see your WAV file. This temp file here is still there, and then our Audacity file. So I'm actually going to save and quit one last time, and go back into my folder before I send it off to Canvas land. And you'll see that indeed now that temp file is gone, and I have the 2 items required for this assignment. Before you zip it up, the very, very final step is to preview your export. Always double check. I know you're in a rush. We're all in a rush to get stuff done. Deadlines are important. So don't forget to do this, because a lot of times people will maybe only export the first part of the phrase where it says microphone check 1 2 1 2. That's a problem. It needs to be the 2 sentences, and it needs to be about 8.5 seconds. So hit space bar. Don't double click on it, because then you'll open something horrendous like iTunes. But anyway, let's see. Double space or space bar.
Microphone check 1 2 1 2. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Yeah, boop, boop, boop. Yep, looks like we're good. And let's see. Now we just need to zip it up and upload it. So final step is I'm going to hit on a Mac. It's Control. It's right click, send to for Windows. Let's see. I'm going to compress it as assignment 1. And this is what we need to upload into Canvas land. So let's go back over to Canvas land for the assignment. I'm going to enter student view. This is what you're going to be seeing, is the start assignment. Of course, this whole thing can be done offline. There's no clock ticking as long as you get it in by the deadline. But this is where you upload the file. So you'll see this place to upload a file, browse, and then upload the zip. Again, you can't upload a folder into Canvas. It has to be zip. I only want one item uploaded. Do not upload the WAV file and the Audacity.aup3 separately. I want to see one thing. And that's it. Let's go back to my leave my student view. And we're done. Have fun with the editing. Don't forget to read about those tricky words. You saw the two that I went over, but there are some other tricky ones when I snap my fingers that magically were fixed on my end. So I definitely get out my really good headphones and listen to these, every single one, at a pretty good volume. So if there's any issues, you'll see 1/10 of a point shaved off for each little minor click or pop in there. This is just good feedback for everybody to make sure that we are all expert editors of voiceover. Until next time, over and out.